it's Ashley, and I was about to say my channel stuff, but I'm not on my channel. So here we are with our second technically official video for now. That's what I call Black Love. So Deidre and I made the decision that we also wanted to upload other content on this channel specifically related to Black love romance, and this is our first additional content video outside of the trailer, which I'm hoping that everyone loved. If you haven't seen the trailer yet, the link will be above in the card symbol. So today I am here to talk about my top 10 Black love romances of 2020. Now it's so crazy because I've already read some this month and I was almost about to include them. I'm like, no, Ashley, it's 2020, the year 2020, the ones that you read in 2020, because I've read some amazing ones already in 2021. So I can't wait to do this video again. So all of these books may not have necessarily been published in 2020. Some of them were published in 2020, but others were not. But these are just ones that I read in 2020 that I absolutely loved. And before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about my journey in reading Black love romance. So I was an avid hater of romance probably until about 2 years ago. I was just not into the concept of reading a romance book, and I can't even tell you why. I don't know why. I was like, no, I'm not into it. And I decided 2 years ago, going through a really, really tough period, that I wanted to attempt to pick up some romances. And a lot of the romances that I was reading at first were very much so interracial. I was picking up romances that were kind of speculative in nature, so everybody wasn't necessarily human. I was picking up romances where both characters were white or multicultural, but I had not really picked up any Black love romances. And my very first like truly Black love romance was probably a book by Nicole Falls, and that's when I was introduced to the indie world of Black romance, because I had read some street lit prior to getting into Black love romance. But we'll have a conversation about street lit and how it fits into the grand scheme of things. But if we're talking like Black love contemporary romance, my first selection definitely came from Nicole Falls, and I have not been able to stop picking it up since then. So it's been really, really important to me, because growing up and just looking at romance in general, I was not seeing people who looked like me, and I felt like that had to do specifically with the fact that seeing two Black people in love was not considered normal. People didn't think that they were interested, and when I say people, I mean more so in terms of like publishing industry, did not want to normalize two Black people being in love. Of course, we're going to talk about in our live show the lines that were specifically dedicated to Black love romances, but even now still it's just super hard to even see that. So delving into the indie world has given me a lot of like freedom to want to explore Black love romance as much as I want, instead of trying to wait for publishing to keep up with what I desire. So in saying all of this, I am by no means an expert. I am a huge advocate for it, because I believe that seeing two Black people in love is just as important as any other romance book. And for me, this is a learning process and a journey in itself for me as well. So we'll be learning together as we go through the different series that we have planned out for this channel. So I'm gonna go ahead now, before I get too long-winded, and jump into my top books of 2020 that were Black love indie romances. The first one on my list should be no surprise to anyone, because I ranted and raved about this book so much last year, and that is Let Me Love You by Alexandria House. This is the first book in the McLean Brothers series, which is just a phenomenal series about four brothers who go on their different journeys in finding love with their partners. Let Me Love You focuses specifically on Big South, who is a older individual. I think he's close to his 40s, if not already in his 40s, and it is about his romance with Jo, who is a single mother attempting to raise her daughter. They meet when Jo is commissioned to help work on a piece for Big South's I'm gonna call him Everett. So I used to call him Big Sal, but his name is Everett, when she's commissioned to make a piece for his 14-year-old daughter, and the romance kind of ensues from there. This was the second book, I believe. It was either the second or the third book that I had read by Alexandria House. I think anything that I had read prior to this were just novellas, and this was the first full-length novel that I had read from her, and it was so beautifully done. I think that the chemistry and the respect, there was a mutual respect that Joe had for Everett and Everett had for Joe that I found to be just fascinating. Of course, there is some conflict with Joe having to kind of assimilate to Everett's world because he is this household name in the music industry, big rep icon, and she is not used to being a part of that world. She's used to being more low-key, just kind of keeping to herself and raising her daughter, and he assimilates her to the best of his ability. He's very protective of her. He's very mindful of the things that he exposes her to. He's very mindful of her wishes, and like I said before, for me it really was about this mutual respect that they had for one another. The adoration and the love and the sex scenes were a chef's kiss. They were so good. And I always say, like, with this cover, he looks so much like Andre 3000. I just can't get past it. Like, I had to ask someone at my job. I was like, does this man look like Andre 3000? Because quite frankly, I feel like he does look like Andre 3000. But this was definitely one of my favorite romances of last year that I absolutely love. And I'm just gonna go ahead and insert this. I did not rank these in any type of order. I just was not gonna put myself through that mental torture of trying to rank which ones would go in whatever order. I specifically feel like we're just gonna go with the list. So the next one that I have on this list is one that I also ranted about a lot last year, and that is Fans Only by Beloved. Beloved was also one of the first Black indie romance authors that I read. Now, come to think of it, I can't remember specifically if it was Beloved or Nicole Falls that came first. Either way, I discovered them around the same time. So Fans Only by Beloved is about two friends, Aries and Merrick, who have known each other for a long time. They get together at this gathering, and when they get together at this gathering, their friends just start talking about the fact, oh, you know, like, would you do a fans only account, which technically is a play on OnlyFans, which I'm sure because of copyright issues and stuff like that, Beloved couldn't use that name, but that's exactly what she's making it a reference to. And they joke about it and they say, yeah, I mean, actually I would. And it's because of the fact that Merrick is a social studies teacher and he wants to have his own recording studio, and Aries wants to do some type of, like, it's either interior design or fashion design with the two, but she wants to train under someone and it's expensive to take the classes under that individual. So the two of them actually, when they go outside after meeting with their friends, are like, yeah, you know, would you be down to do it? Like, let's just do this. We'll do it until we get the money that we need to get. We make a pact, we make an agreement. We don't fall in love with each other. We're just doing this to get the cash really, really quick. And of course, you know, as a reader, as soon as they make that agreement, you're like, no way. There's no way that y'all are going to have sex this long and then nobody's going to catch any feelings for each other. So of course, that's something that becomes not an issue, but I'm gonna say an issue throughout the book. But one of the most important things that I loved about this is the fact that Merrick was very, very endearing in terms of the fact that he was invested in making sure that Aries was as comfortable as possible. It wasn't one of these things where he was like a guy like, oh yeah, you know, like, I'm about to slip in and get in her pants real quick, and you know, this is going to be cool. Like, he knew that this was going to be difficult for her to some extent, because she was going to be publicly exposing her body to other people and doing it to make money, and he created an atmosphere where she was going to be at ease with him and that she knew that she could trust him with anything that they were doing. And it was really, really hot. I really enjoyed it. There were moments even outside of the scenes that they were shooting for their Fans Only account where he was just treating her so nicely, and I can understand why she goes through the process of like, oh my gosh, okay, I know we agreed not to catch feelings, but because there was so much that he was doing that was just so kind and so caring, and I knew that they had drawn that line, but they were just a great match. They had great chemistry. They had known each other for such an extensive period of time that it wasn't surprising that when they, you know, had this physical connection, they started spending more time together, they developed this emotional connection to one another, and it hands down was just chef's kiss. If you haven't read anything by Beloved, definitely check her out. I think I've read 3 or 4 Beloved's books at this point, but I believe her backlog, like her catalog itself, is well over 100 books at this point. I remember her making a post about the fact when she had finished her 100th book. So she has a lot. She has a lot of stuff. She also has her own publication, which is Beloved Publications, and I signed up for the newsletter where it feels like it's almost every day, but I could be just tripping, but it feels like at least every other day I'm getting an email about a new title that's been released under her line, which is a great avenue to discover more Black love indie romance writers, and I have found a couple of great people through that publication list. Now, I couldn't make this list without including a Nicole Falls book. I love Nicole Falls, and I know that she doesn't know because I always get very, very nervous about interacting with authors, even though like I just watched Christina C. Jones make a video about interacting and supporting Black indie romance writers, and Nicole Falls just, I eat her entire catalog up. I think last year I probably read anywhere in between like 8 to 10 of her books, now that I think about it, because in December alone I read 4 of her books. So we probably are looking anywhere in between 8 to 10 of her books that I read last year, and she's just great. She's just an amazing writer. Her books are really, really spicy. I think that she writes great characters. I think that she has interesting plot lines. They never get old or boring or dry. Like, I just really, really enjoy her as an author. So the one that I decided to include on this list is a compilation of stories that she was a part of. I read 2 that she was a part of last year, which was Luminous Cruise Ship Chronicles, and this one was the New Year Bay Solutions. I saw her announce it on her Instagram, and I got super excited about it because she was the first book in the lineup, and her book was 8 Naughty Nights. Each day, every author released a new book in the series. Hers was about 2 characters, Lance and Tavia, and Tavia had actually gone on this trip to get away and essentially like just get laid, and it's instantaneous. So this is good if you like instant connection or like attraction at first sight or whatever the case may be. I wouldn't say insta love because it's not like they fell in love at first sight, but it was an instant attraction where they basically meet at this get together / party, and this is the Nicole Falls that I love. Like, literally we start off with a bang, and it was amazing. Chef's kiss. Lance and Tavia are super into each other from the get-go, and they try to navigate what they're going to do because they're at this resort and their intention is to walk away from their situation and not really spend any time getting to know too much about each other. But when you're with someone and literally they spend the rest of the trip like into each other, like super into each other all the time, spending all the time in the world together, it's kind of hard to pull back from revealing any personal information about yourself, which I think they both just kind of fall into that trap. And you see them go from like, okay, this is gonna be a one-night stand, to, well, maybe we can make this like a friends with benefits situation while we're here, to, well, what if we consider what we can do when we leave this resort? Like, what can we do? How can this come next? And I don't want to say too much because this is a shorter novella that's a part of this extensive series, and the ending was good about how everything just came full circle. I really did enjoy that, but this was one of my favorites by her last year. But overall, Nicole Falls is another individual that has an extensive backlog of books. There's a little bit of something for everyone. She writes in so many different areas in terms of like thematically and how her characters interact with each other. So this is just one of the ones that I really enjoyed by her. So the next one that I have on this list is one of the first books that I actually read in 2020, one that I've talked about quite a bit last year because I really liked the plus size representation in it, and that was Training My Heart to Love You by Monica Walters. So you've probably heard, like I said, you've heard me talk about this one quite a bit. It focuses on two characters, Courtland and Zaison. Courtland is plus size, and it's not one of those stories where she has to go through accepting herself. She's already at a point where she is confident and sure about her body image, but she is feeling just a tad bit lonely, and she wants partnership, and she meets Zaison as she's working at a community center, I believe, and they meet there, they go out to lunch, and then things kind of go from there. I think I really enjoyed this one too. Outside of the plus side representation, there were some really interesting side characters, but there was also an exploration about familial relationships. So we see that Courtland and her mom have a tad bit of issues. There are some wild things that are revealed throughout the course of the book. There are some family members that can't be trusted on both sides of our storylines between Zaison and Courtland. I thought that this was interestingly written. I just enjoyed watching the romance between the two of them build up. I feel like Zaison really respected Courtland in terms of her body. There was a section where she started to work out more, but that was more along the lines of like getting fit and not, oh, I need to lose weight because I don't look good or I'm not attractive. It wasn't that, which I absolutely did enjoy. And Zaison is like country thug. I don't know how to explain it, but he's like country, but he's got, and it's in the description too, but he's got this like thug swag about him too at the same time. So he was a very interesting character to get to know through the course of this book. I originally found out about this book because of, once again, Beloved Productions. I think it's Beloved Productions. I might have said Beloved Publications. It's either Productions or Publications, one of the two. And I found out about Monica Walters through that line, and that's how I came across this book and really ended up enjoying it. The next one that I have on this list is one by an author that I'm so glad that I ended up finding last year because she is a hilarious writer, and that is Ashley Nicole. So I read, I think, 3 or 4 Ashley Nicole books last year, and this one was one of my favorites. I think that Ashley Nicole is just a brilliant writer. She also has a pretty decent backlist, and she's just funny. Like, this is an author that I know that I can go to if I ever just want to laugh out loud about things, and that, you know, I may not be in a good mood, but picking up one of her books will definitely just have me like in tears, crying, laughing about stuff. She had one book that literally did make me like cry tears of laughter, and it was just phenomenal. One that I don't think I highlighted enough last year that I really enjoyed was the book that she wrote for the Luminous Cruise Ship Chronicles. So this was kind of my first introduction into the kind of like compilation stories that a lot of Black indie romance authors end up doing. So this one was actually a series that I found because I was looking for another Nicole Falls book to read, and I saw that she had written the 8th book for this series, and I was like, okay, Luminous Cruise Ship Chronicles, book number 8. I was like, I don't want to read these out of order, so I'll just go through and I'll read all 8 books till I, you know, all the first 7 books until I get to Nicole Falls book, which would end up being the 8th book. So Ashley Nicole actually wrote the 2nd book, which is Love on Deck, and it was hilarious. So this entire series, essentially, they wrote when we all went under quarantine around March of last year, and all of these stories take place on a cruise ship. They are interconnected in some way. What I love about some of these series is that there's like one character that makes an appearance in each one of the books, and while you don't necessarily have to read them in order, I think they are fun if you read them in order because you get to see that one character in so many different situations, and you get to see how they progress, and then you get to see some of the characters not necessarily interact, but they see other characters if they've done something like really wild in the previous book. It's just really good. I would recommend reading the 8 of them in order if you can. But actually Nicole wrote the second book in the series, and this was about Reagan and Emery. So Reagan was going on the cruise ship not to really find love. She was just attempting to kind of just get away, and she ends up running into a guy that supposedly broke her heart. They had dated before, and then he kind of just left her hanging. He ghosted her essentially, and we figure out why he ghosted her. These two had really great chemistry. Like, I was really interested and invested in their romance, and I thought it was very talented because Ashley Nicole was able to basically take a short amount of pages and make me like, oh my gosh, like, I really want to see them together. I really want to know where this story goes. And the final scene of this book was so creative and wild. It was good. It was hot. It was good. And the creativity was chef's kiss. I was like, ah, that was super creative. So I left this book really wanting another one from her. Like, I really wanted to know what happened to our two characters, and she has a gift for that because it's not the first time that she's done that. I read one of her other novellas around Thanksgiving, and I read it and was eating it up. I was like, oh, this is so good. I'm so invested in these two characters. And I was like, but wait, where's the rest of the story? And thank goodness last November she had written the second part to that story. So I was very happy about that. But if you haven't heard of Ashley Nicole, definitely check her out. The next one that I have on this list is actually a trilogy. So I'm kind of cheating because it's not a single book. And this is the After Hours series by Eva Freeman, which I did talk a little bit about last year that I really enjoyed. It's a 3-book series, and each one of these books takes place in a workplace environment, but not really, because I want to explain this. Nothing really happens in the workplace environment. It's just that the two characters meet while at work, and then everything happens after hours, which is why it's called the After Hours series. If you're looking for Black indie romance that specifically focuses on sapphic romance, I would recommend checking these out. Each one features 2 powerful Black women getting into a relationship and navigating their relationship. It just was a great series. I really did enjoy them. It was amazing just seeing Black women in positions of power, like attorneys, lawyers, IT, you know, heads, librarians. It was just such a wide variety of seeing not just women in power, but Black women in power, and them navigating their romance and their relationship with other powerful Black women. It was a complete turn on, if I'm going to be honest. So if you're looking for more sapphic romances, I would definitely recommend checking out the series. The next one that I have is The Stroke of Midnight by Diana W. I plan on reading more Diana W books this year because I have not read more of her books, but this was, I think I read this one, and I think she wrote one for the Luminous Cruise Ship Chronicles series, but I can't exactly remember, but I'm pretty sure that she did. But this one that she wrote for the Booze and Boo, so BOOS, BOOZE, which is a series I've been constantly talking about all last year, especially during Halloween, because I thought this was just a great read for Halloween. And this one was made up of 6 books. Once again, it was one of those series where I would recommend reading them in order because they all take place at the same Halloween event in the same town, and there are characters that pop up in each book, and each author took the opportunity to figure out how they wanted to use their concept of, you know, spookiness Halloween to fit into the series. This one was hands down my favorite of the 6. So Diana W took the concept of Halloween and made it a little bit more paranormal, but it was a paranormal in the sense of trying to move on from some stuff. So our heroine in this one actually ended up losing her fiance. I think it was either her fiance or her husband. I can't remember if they were married or not at that point prior to the start of this book, and she moves to the town trying to get past it, and she ends up going to this party, and there are some things that happen, and I mean, it tugged at my heart to be so short. I was like, I would have loved to see this, but you know, never mind. So I would say I would have loved to see this as a full-length novel. Actually, no, I wouldn't have, because I think that she paced this so perfectly that the beauty of it needed to be contained within the short amount of pages that it was written in. I couldn't believe that she had done that in such a short period of time, and that it made me emotional in that short period of time. But very, very well done. Very, very different from the other books that were included in the series. It's superb creativity. Absolutely adored it and appreciated it, and I can't wait to read more from this author. The next one that I have for this list is Treat by Shay Sanders. This was one that I read around Halloween, and this is it's not really a duology because they're not related, but she wrote them at the same time, and this was my first time ever reading any of her works. It was Trick and Treat, and Treat was a treat. I think what I appreciated about Treat is that it was different from some other romance novels that I had been reading all year long. So this one specifically focused on Mike and Dina, and what was interesting about this one is that, you know, usually when I had read romance before, it was about two people meeting and falling in love. Whereas in this one, Mike and Dina had already been in a relationship. They actually already had kids. So it wasn't like they were meeting for the first time. They didn't have any meet cute moments. It was about maintaining their chemistry and maintaining that love and appreciation and becoming creative with each other. So Mike was not an insular character, but he was very much so like, he did what he did and he liked the routine, and Dina definitely was not that type of person. She wanted to explore and have fun and get out there and do, you know, some wild stuff, and that really wasn't Mike's arena. But for Halloween, he decided to, you know, create a little treat situation, and they go to this place where it's, for lack of better terms, it's kind of like a pleasure house, and things go from there. I don't even want to say too much because this is a short novella, but it was it was good. It was really, really good. It is definitely a MFF romance type of situation, if you catch my drift. So I definitely would recommend that, or let you know that going into it. But I would recommend reading both, and these are the only books, like I said, that I've ever read from her, but I definitely want to see what else she has to offer in the future. The next one that I have here is a Christmas novella that I really enjoyed from an author that was new to me once again, and this is the Hookup Before Christmas by Phyllis Bourne. This is really, really short, only 27 pages, so I'm going to be very mindful about how much I tell you. But this is about Toy and Lennox. So Toy has recently broken up with her boyfriend. She's getting off of work around the holiday times, and she's pretty much like, I really just want to get laid. I just need to get laid. So she is going to hook up with her ex just as a one-night stand. So she goes to her house, and she goes to his house wearing nothing but like a trench coat, nothing underneath. It's freezing outside, and she knocks on the door. He supposedly answers the door. She drops the coat, and it's not her ex-boyfriend at all. So this one was great. It was fun. It was enjoyable. It was entertaining. I was like, what? Wait, I need more. So actually there is a follow-up book to this one called The Thanksgiving Game, and they were just so good. I really enjoyed both of them a lot. So the last one that I have on this list is from Alexandra Warren, and Alexandra Warren is, I think, a more well-known name in terms of like booktuber reading Black love romances. I think I've read maybe one or two Alexandra Warren books before this one, I think. I know I've read at least one before reading this one. Yes. Okay, I think it's two. I'm pretty sure it's two. I had to think, I was like, wait. Because I read so many this year, I'm trying to figure out who exactly did I read, not this year, last year. Who exactly did I read? So this one is a part of Alexandra Warren's short story or novella collection that are all based around the holidays, and this one is a Thanksgiving novella, and it is about Aspen and Orlin. And Aspen is this huge celebrity, and she does like a TV and movies, and she comes back home and everybody's just making it this big deal, and they meet each other, and it was just instantaneous attraction. Automatically, they really were just into each other. There is not really a trope. It kind of is a slight trope of like different economic classes, but not really, but kind of, because there is some questioning about whether they truly belong to each other because of what he's doing, you know, in contrast to her being this, you know, I won't say A-list, but she's working her way up to A-list celebrity, and how that would end up working out. But they just had really, really great chemistry. They were really, really great to each other. I think that they spent a lot of great time together. They really got to know each other. They respected each other, appreciated each other, and it was just a great romance to watch develop, you know, across the length of the novella. Now this one specifically, like, I think there were a couple other ones on this list, but I didn't point it out, but this one specifically is not an HEA, a happily ever after. This one is an HFN, which is a happy for now. So they figure some things out, but it's not like we're riding off into the sunset. We are just content with where we are right now, because you have to think about it in terms of her being a celebrity, having to travel all the time to do TV shows, do movies, and him having to stay in that hometown because he is the local barber. He works at the local barber shop. It creates what would be, it might be a conflict with a long distance relationship. So it was really good. I enjoyed it. I can't wait to continue to read more from Alexandra Warren. I know that she has an extensive backlist. I think she, in the past couple of weeks, has just published her 75th novel, or she has moved past 75, has a backlist. I know she has an extensive backlist as well, like a couple of authors that I mentioned on here. All right, y'all, so that is it. Let us know in the comments below, who are some of your favorite Black indie romance writers? Who do you want to check out? What is your journey in maybe, you know, wanting to read more Black love romance, or, you know, if you already started reading Black love romance, like what are some of your favorite titles that you read last year? As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me and Deidre, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Remember that we're going to be having our live show on February 13th, where we're going to do our first session and our introductory conversation about Black love. I will make sure that, like I said before, I link that first video that we did, that trailer, in the card symbol above. That way you can check out all the important information there, and we'll be back soon.